So, real talk, listening to podcasts is powerful, but taking action, that's where everything changes. And that's exactly why I created the Breakthrough Bestie membership. This is where we go beyond the surface with exclusive content, deeper trainings, practical tools, things that you can actually use to create real transformation in your life. And the best part, you're not going to be doing it alone. You're going to be surrounded by a community of driven, growth focused, faith focused besties who are all in this with you. So if you're ready to stop just thinking about change and actually making it happen, I want to invite you to join the Breakthrough Bestie membership. Click the link in the show notes and become a Breakthrough Bestie today. I'll see you inside the community. Welcome back to another episode of the Breakthrough Bestie Podcast, where we have real conversations about faith and finances and what it looks like to steward well in every season. Today's episode is a powerful reminder that generosity isn't always easy and that stewardship requires both heart and wisdom. My guest today is LaTika Tillis, and she is a wife, a mom of three, the director of operations at a fast growing wealth management firm. But beyond her professional experience, her personal journey with money has been shaped deeply by her faith, meaning from choosing to give even when she didn't have much to navigating seasons of increase, temptation, financial mistakes, and even being taken advantage of. Her story is going to highlight what it really means to grow as a steward. It is my prayer that through this conversation about generosity, discipline, discernment, and trusting God, that you don't just leave knowing what you have, but better yet, that you leave knowing how to manage it. So I want to welcome LaTika to the podcast. I'm so glad that you are here.
Hello, hello. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you say yes. And listen, y'all, let me tell y'all who LaTika is to me. She is an angel. She is a quiet force, but she is such a blessing. And I met her through her husband, who does all of my pictures. So if you see any of the graphics that I am in for this particular podcast, my book, my website, my pop ups, anything that I have, her husband did it. And so we thank you for letting him use his gift to bless me and so many others. But yeah, it is so good to have you here. So tell the
Oh,
people. I know I read your bio, but tell the people who you are, what you do.
yeah. Well, first, I want to just thank you for the invitation, number one, because you have been a light in my life from afar. I always tell Rashid about energy and people, and he's always looking forward to introducing me to new people. And he was over the moon to try and connect the two of us. He just saw a lot of commonalities, and he knew I would love you and your personality and everything you are and you represent. And so I would just say, number one, thank you for the invite. I think highly of you as a woman of faith and everything you do, but it's easier for me to dote on you than it is to talk about me. so,
Girl, you better
um,
yeah, tell the people.
right. But so I am, as she stated, a mother of three and a wife and mother of three, and that's very important. That's paramount to my life. I have three daughters at that, so let's just put that out there. All 14, 9, and 5. So I've got the gamut of all the generations running through the house and all the changes, and then an entrepreneur husband who's very ambitious, and so I value a bit of stability in life for myself, and so I feel like I'm the stabilizing force in the midst of all of it. And so, um, thoroughly enjoy my life. Thoroughly enjoy what I do in my career. I am currently a director of operations at a wealth management firm here in Houston. I've actually been in this space for probably, I think this year makes about 17. I think February made 17 years, 18 years in this industry, and it's been a slow crawl, but it's been a very impactful journey in my life personally, just as far as shaping what I view, how I view money, and just how wealthy people handle money, and how I can use some of those tips and tricks and port that to my personal life. And then, of course, I helped my mother retire within the past 12 months, and so that was a blessing to me to watch her be able to walk into something that she never thought. She thought she was going to be one of that worked most of the rest of her life. And so I was like, you know what? It's time out. Let's go ahead and knock this out and let's make sure you get to live the latter half of your life the way you want to. And so I'm proud to say I was able to kind of assist with that. And so it's a passion of mine to just connect with and communicate with those that might have shared similar stories in me growing up, and just seeing us excel and become whole in every area of our lives, financially, spiritually, motherhood, all of these things. It's so much available to us. And so I just enjoy giving of myself. So not just my funds, but of my heart, my knowledge, my resources, whatever it is. I'm always availed to be a blessing to others, as y'all are blessings to me as well in return. So
Oh, I love that. I love that. And kudos to helping your mom or showing her what is possible. And I love that you talk about working in an area or in an environment where you actually see something different, right? And
mhm,
what's possible. And I think that there's a very fine line where sometimes people will see that, oh, this one group of people or this person is doing it, but they don't necessarily realize that it's a blueprint. And if they
mhm,
did it, we can do it too. Like, and they just went first, or they're a
yeah,
couple of steps ahead. Um, I think that that's such a good advantage if you're wise and you pay attention, right?
yeah,
So I think that that's key, and I'm sure that that's also we're going to talk about how that shaped your perspective about money for sure. We're going to dive into that in this particular
mhm,
episode. Now, you mentioned something though, and that was about your view over money. Um, as well it being having spiritual implications. And so I know that there's some practical tips and some things that you're going to share, but I want to talk first about when you look or when you think about money through the lens of your faith, what does
mhm.
stewardship, because I think we throw that word out like
Yeah.
we're real good with churchy words, right? What does
What does that
stewardship
mean?
mean to you personally? Like, if somebody here is listening to this podcast and they don't know what stewardship is, how do you explain it to them?
Yeah. So I have to take a note from my husband. I tend to use big words, but I think we're all smart, so I can use my big words. But I'm gonna break it down. But when I think of stewardship or stewarding, I kind of think of that as someone who's been assigned something to take care of. And so, as we know, and I use my kids as an example a lot because I've learned so much about life and myself through my children. So, in essence, outside of money, God has given me my children or our children to steward as good corporate citizens, whatever you want to call them, however you want to put that out there. And so we do our best to raise them in the fear and admonition of the Lord in the ways we think are right, so that when they become grown and go out and live their life, they can actually contribute something to society, right? So I think of it in the same respect, because when we hear the word stewardship, it's always appended to money. It's not appended to all of the other areas in our lives. And so you can't just see stewardship as in one bucket as, oh, I have to be a good steward over my finances. Well, no, I believe we have the responsibility to be good stewards or good caretakers of all of the things that come our way. And it's just easy to append it to money because it's something we can see and actually do something with, and we can get an immediate gratification or return from it right away. But it's pretty much just summing it up is doing the right thing at the right time with whatever it is you have,
That's
or
good.
with whatever God has put in your care.
That's good. There's this scripture, and I believe it's in Luke 16:10, where it's like, if you're faithful of a few things, he'll make you
Mhm.
ruler over much. And I
There you
think
go.
that there is this, I think that's where stewardship comes from, right? What do you have in your hands? What was given to you, and what are you doing with that? And it's not just your money, it's your time, it's your
Right.
talents, it's your thoughts, it's your mindset, it's how you like it's so much bigger than just money. And I know we're talking about faith and finances, but being a steward over everything that
Hmm.
you have access to that's within your reach and in your care, um, is important because they all literally feed into each other. Everything is connected. And so I'm glad that you broke it down, because, I want to make sure we're all speaking the same language.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good. Yeah, to understand.
that's good. Okay, so now you talked about your heart and
Hmm.
that you want to make yourself available.
Yeah.
Um, and you have a very generous nature. And I think in your when you sent your faith story, you mentioned that generosity is a big part of who you are. Where do you think that
Mhm.
that came from?
Um, I think that came from my mom
Okay.
because she has a big heart and she's always been very generous. So I just always remember growing up watching my mom give the shirt off her back. Like she would do as much as she could for anybody that she could with what she had. And we didn't have much. And I know also her showing that generosity towards me. Now, granted, single mother, grew up single mother household. There was two of us, and so struggles and things of that nature. But she always made sure we had what we needed, and she never talk down on anybody or what have you. And one thing I did not see from her is she just always had everything taken care of. I never understood her struggle until I became grown, but I always remember she was always willing to help out anybody whenever she could. And so she just always was that example for me.
So now that's interesting. So I had a different experience. I knew the struggle. I saw the
Yeah.
struggle, right? We felt the struggle growing up. But I guess my question for you is, as an adult, have you and your mom ever talked about what was the struggle? How did you do that, right?
We have because I asked, because there are nights where there are times I remember she would say, "Let's have a picnic." And she would lay out a picnic at the house and she'd make us sandwiches and all that stuff. And I would be like, "Well, Mom," I was like, "I remember those times to where we would have picnics and those are happy memories for me." And she was like, "Well, what you didn't know was that's all we had in the house." So I needed y'all to know, like I wanted to make it fun so y'all didn't necessarily feel the struggle. She's like, "I knew what we were going through." She's like, "There are many a nights I went to bed hungry just so y'all could eat." But for her, it was important, right, wrong, or indifferent, doesn't matter, that that struggle didn't impact us, I guess, in the same way it impacted her as an adult because we were children, right?
Hmm.
And I learned appreciation and all of that. So just learning that I always appreciated her, but as an adult, just the level of appreciation for what she did for us, like even heightened even more.
That's so good. I shared this, I wrote a book and I talked about some of my struggles in that book, especially
I
when it
read the
came to
book. Good
my
book.
kids, when they read it, they were like, we don't remember any of this. And I was like, thank God, right?
Yeah.
Because you just don't know how those things impact them. But I was sharing, like, when the lights would get disconnected, and they were like, is that when we used to play camping? And I'm like, yes, when we
Yeah.
we would camp out because the lights was off, and I tried to make it as less disruptive as I possibly
Mhm.
could because I feel like as children, as much as is within my control, that I messed up, that their childhood, their innocence should not necessarily be disrupted. Um,
Yeah.
and I thank the Lord for that, right? So, yeah, I can relate.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
There's this scripture in Acts, and it says, it is more blessed to give than to receive. You know that scripture? You heard that
Yes,
before?
yes,
How
ma'am.
has that shaped your approach to money?
Yeah. So I feel like the more I have, the more I can give. But even though it says it's better to give than to receive, for me, the anything I receive belongs to God anyway.
Okay.
And so I don't like to see other people struggle.
Mhm.
And a lot of people do struggle financially. And so, as part of my story and being taken advantage of as a young woman growing up, trying to steward or manage a little bit I had, there are many times to where I was just like, here, you need it. I live at home with my mom. Yeah, I got a car note to pay. It'll work out, but you seem to need this more than me. So here you go. And then those are instances to where like they may as well have just put their hand in my pocket and just ran with
Mhm.
it, without giving some of the details of the story in the background. Um, but for me, it's funny because I sent my husband a reel the other day. That's what we do, right? We send each other reels. That's how we communicate. But I sent him a reel the other day where this guy had blessed this woman financially. She was a single mom, and she was over the moon, and it really helped her. And I sent him the reel, and I said, "This is why I would want to be like if we were to ever be rich." I said, "This is why."
Mhm.
Because just the look on her face and just how whatever that was. I don't know how it's going to help that woman, but it just on the inside, it just does something to me.
Mhm.
And it makes me, and I'm like, I was sitting there, I want to cry right along with her, but I'm just like, just to know that she goes from struggling to now having this blessing that comes in her life that could help alleviate that struggle, even if it's for a little period of short period of time. And I even mentioned to him, I said, you know what? I said I would do like some sort of grant program to where people would have to go through financial literacy classes first, and then I'm like, I give them like $100,000, but first you got to complete this program so you can learn how to manage the money, and we're gonna get you out of debt. We're gonna do all this stuff, And so for me, it's like, although it is more blessed to give than to receive, I stand on that giving part. And I'm just like, okay, well, Lord, I know in order to give, I must have. And so at that point, it's like, see me as a steward, Lord, for whatever financial blessings or whatever you would have for me, knowing that I will take care of those that you would put in my path. Because like for me, it's not like oh, woe is you. You know how people have that
Mhm.
mindset where
Mhm.
it's more like I'm giving because it makes me feel better. It's not about me. I'm the hands and the feet. I'm the vessel. And to me, money is the easy part. Let's get that out of the way so then wholeness in the rest of your life can take place, because it's hard to now become spiritually whole and physically well and all these things if we're always focused on financial lack, financial this. I'm like, Kim, let's just get that part out of the way. That's the bottom of the barrel, so we
So
can
how
move.
do you that's the thing, I guess, because we're both in this space,
Yeah,
and I often feel the same tension where it's like, I want to help everyone know all the things, right?
yeah, yeah.
But how do you balance the tension between wanting to give to
Mm.
people that are not necessarily ready to receive, like, meaning, like, there's that wisdom and discernment that you must have, right? Not just so that you're not taken advantage of, but also more importantly, so that you don't become their God. You
That's
don't
right.
become the person that they're looking to. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. So now for me, the Bible talks about not giving of necessity, not giving grudgingly or of necessity. And some of that is about my necessity, my need for something. So like people will sow a seed for, we're not doing that. But more so from the standpoint, like people will borrow money. Oh, let me hold $10 from you. Let me hold this from that. You look at the repeat offenders. And
Mhm.
as the repeat offenders continue to repeat, you're like, okay, there's a larger systemic issue here that we need to cut out, because now I'm not a giver, I'm an enabler.
Mm.
And so let's cut out the enabling and now get rid of the crutch so that now you can actually learn. Sometimes for some people, the struggle needs to happen so that you can learn what you need to learn. And so I would be remiss then if I tried to jump in to eliminate whatever lesson they need to learn through that struggle, because some of our problems are self-inflicted. And so it does take, like you said, it takes a lot of discernment. It takes wisdom on my side to be able to say, is this good soil to sow into?
That's good.
And if it's not, then you kind of, and I'm an empath, so it's like, no, I have to say no.
I'm
No,
not
I have
their
to practice.
God.
I have to stand in the mirror and tell myself and practice no. Okay, lights. Do we still have lighting? I hate when these offices have like these automatic lights that just
Yeah.
turn on and off when they
It's
want
okay. You
to.
just have a dewy glow. You're fine.
I'm still lit as long as I'm
Yeah.
still lit. It's so
Yeah.
strange. But so from that standpoint, to your point, like you said, it just takes growth and discernment and wisdom and maturity just
Yeah.
to understand the difference, because those dynamics and those lines can blur sometimes. And then when you're kind of an empath and a sympathetic person, like you said, you want to give everything you have to everybody, but you can't. And it's not even about, like you said, me being taken advantage of as much as it is, well, does this might help this person in this moment, but looking down the road, how does
Mhm.
that really impact their life going forward in their situation?
That's so good. And it's interesting because I think what you're touching on right now is very real challenges or some tension, some internal tension that I feel
Mhm,
like people who are asking for money don't realize that the people they're asking deal
mhm.
with, and the conversations that we have on the inside that you may not even be aware of. I think people believe that when they ask for the money, then it's just a matter of, do I have it or not?
Yeah.
No, there's so many other things, and it's like, whether I have it or not is not, it's honestly, that's the easiest question, right? But there is all of these things. If I give this because it doesn't necessarily belong to me, am I being obedient to God?
Hmm.
Am I exercising wisdom here? I am discerning that there's a systemic issue. Now I got to have a difficult conversation.
That's
Now I
right.
got to like, now I got, and then I got to work up all of the words and all the language. Like it's not just a yes or no. You could have the $100 or not. It's literally so much more. And that's as a single person. Don't let me be married. And now I got to go and I got to bring this to the, and then I got to sit through all of the way that they men process things,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not, sometimes it's not always initially the way that they process is from the lens of Christ and the cross. It's some
Yeah.
practical, not, and not, nobody sees that part. The
Yeah.
what the givers go through, it always feels like, oh, you just being stingy, you just being selfish. You get, well, no, you in need. I'm gonna need you to settle all the way down.
Yeah. What they say, beggars can't be choosers. So
But
yeah.
they do, don't they? Don't they? All right,
And then they
so
be real specific. I need this. No, I'm gonna. If I give to you, I'm gonna give you what I feel like I can give you.
no, and no, don't then I gotta go and ask you and then and beg you to pay me back by the due date that you asked. Oh, now listen, okay?
And you know what? And the paying back on that. If I were to do that for someone in that way, I don't even expect
Yeah,
the return.
yeah.
And not because that's me. So and I probably shouldn't be putting this out there because I don't know who's watching. So don't try and come for me. But
Well, she said she ain't even looking for it no more.
I can just take it and run. I ain't never got to pay it back. Um, but I don't have that because I don't want the animosity. Because a lot of times, if people are asking you
Yes,
money in that way, there's someone that knows you, and it's likely a
yes,
closer relationship. And so then you start to say, okay, do I want to salvage the relationship, or is it about these few dollars that you need to pay me back? And so I tend to lean on like let's keep the relationship intact. The next
yeah,
time might be a no, or if you've
yeah.
not paid me back, I'm not going to continue to allow you to compound that.
Oh.
But let's do the best we can to keep this relationship
But
together.
we had to grow. So I'm the same way now. Like
Yeah,
if I don't have it to give, I just don't, right? And I am one
yeah,
of those things where I value relationships over being right. And
yeah,
so, and I will do that. But I had to grow to that point. I had to
yeah,
develop I had to mature to that point. That's some internal stuff that I went through with me and God, right? Because I recognize that He made me a giver. Um, and this is me just discerning through like all of the things, but the people that are typically got the attitude, they're not doing that level of they don't have that level of growth, or they're not growing at the same pace, right? And so but we had to get to that point,
yeah,
which honestly takes me to, because I think that that's the thing, right? The Lord is faithful and He responds when we are obedient. And when
yeah,
we become better stewards of our finances and we are trusting Him, He then provides and He increases, He multiplies. And so now you're at a point in your life where you're making more. You have
mhm,
had promotions, you've had increase. Your husband's business is blowing up. It's all because you guys have walked into a season of stewardship where you are stewarding well. So I guess my question for you is, when you are or when you made the shift
mhm.
and you're making more, you're experiencing more, you're enjoying life more, right? Because you can, right?
Right. Yeah.
Did your relationship with money shift?
How do I answer that? Did my relationship? Yes, it did.
Okay.
Um, and I'll bring it back more to how it potentially changed me.
Okay.
Um, Still generous, still open, but when you grow up not having much, we didn't travel, we didn't do, we was having picnics like you and the dog. We was having picnics too, girl, camping trips, all that, right in the living room, because we was broke. Um, you kind of have this mindset to where like now I can experience life, right? I can do all of the things, or most of the things, not all of them. I can do most of the things now, and now you're weighing it in the balance of money, understanding money as a tool. That's something we both teach. Understanding money as a tool. Now, money becomes a tool to get me what I want.
Mm.
And so, because before it was like, look, I'm gonna give you a little piece of this half a sandwich because we both hungry. We gonna get it. Now it's like I can eat for days. And I can give you some, I'll give you but that now I don't have to eat the sandwiches. I can go to the buffet now. And now I can go to the five-star restaurant and I can go to and I can do all these things and it just kind of clouds you a little bit to say we can do the annual family vacations that we couldn't do when we first got married and started having kids or what. I got my passport when I was 40. I'll be 44 this year.
Mm,
And so it's like these things now, it's like now I can live a life that I've always thought I wanted or wished I had seen growing up or whatever the case might be, and that becomes a priority. And
mm,
I'll be honest, it does. It becomes a priority. And then sometimes when that happens, it's like you other things accidentally fall by the wayside because it wasn't an intentional choice to say, I'm going to be less giving. Because now, instead of going on the day trip to San Antonio for the weekend, now we can fly to Mexico. Let's go on this cruise. Let's go to South Africa. We have more, and no, and there are extra zeros behind some of those trips. And so, in order to do that, you are now. I'm not in. We don't go into debt behind these things because we budget and we do all of that. But now the line item to what we're given to starts to decrease, or it does not increase proportionate to what it should,
that's good.
given the increase. So from that standpoint, it really, like they say, when you have money, it starts to reveal certain things, whether or not that's true. Um, I think different phases in your life do pull back another layer of that onion, and then I think just having access to more does now say, this is new now. What do you do?
And
You
so
know.
I want to stay there just a little bit because I think that that is something that people experience, but they don't put language to it. Meaning, now that you have access to more and you can do more and you are allowed to do more, and then you realize, oh snap, I'm not giving or I haven't adjusted my tithes in
Hmm.
2 promotional cycles. I'm still
Yeah.
tithing though. So I went from not tithing to tithing, and then that just becomes the bar. Well, I'm tithing, but I have not given God that. Or maybe it's, you know what? I used to give to this charity,
Hmm.
but now I'm not anymore, or I'm
Hmm.
not giving as much, or I didn't raise my gift to charity or that charitable contribution or whatever that is. Or I used to shop at the Goodwill and now I have a closet full of clothes and I haven't
Yeah.
given anything away.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna sell this stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a mindset, and I think these are daily practices that I don't know that we slow down enough to talk about or to think, or
Yeah.
we don't often consider, but all of it is stewardship, and it's all
Yeah.
giving, and it's all sometimes it can be a little selfish, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I just am
Yeah.
bringing awareness to it. So then,
Right.
now that you become aware that it's like, "Alright, maybe we might wanna take a look at we are tithing, yay, check." But is the tithes proportionate? Is our giving proportionate? How we spend our time, are we still, volunteering? Are we serving at church? Well, no, because we traveling on the weekends now, or,
Yeah.
you
We
know,
don't.
we
We just said now.
you're right, so there's that tension. So
We
how
got
do y'all
money and plans.
so how do you have those conversations, like, with Rashid? Like, how is that handled in the Tillis household?
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, I like to bring it back to the time,
Okay.
more than the money,
Okay.
because I feel like the time is what really slips away from us, and
Mhm.
then somehow the money follows, right? Um, and not highlighting him. So hopefully we get busier.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
put it that way. So when there's more money involved, regardless of how it comes to you, if it's on your regular job or you're on a bit, a lot of times that means your level of responsibility and your money making or your money earning ability now increases. And
Mm.
so now I watch Rashid and I see all the photo shoot, and I'm like, this is all good thing. This is all great. But I can say that, and for us, priorities have shifted because now it's like, well, I'm taking care of family, I'm taking care of home. That means now my time is allocated differently, but it just kind of, it just, and like you said, it just happens.
Mhm.
My job has different, the promotions and the things. And so I've always, been on the 9 to 5, but now I travel now. I didn't
Mhm.
travel before. So now I
So
have
now
to get
you're
on.
balancing the kids
So
versus
now we're
yeah.
balancing, right. And so when you're living a life that's so busy, let's just put it that way to keep it simple. Now there's a side of you that kind of in the gaps where you could do other things. I just want to go take
I
a
just
nap.
wanna go take it. Listen,
I just want to rest. I just want to regroup. And if you're a business owner, sometime you might use that time as additional thinking time on how to continue to grow the business, to sustain things. And so now the time is allocated differently. And these are all positive, good things. But now it's like, okay, now it's heavy, it's heavier on this side than it was, and those scales have to be rebalanced. And to be honest, we haven't had the conversation very much. We just last week I stepped in. I said, okay, I see some. Let me help you on some of the things on the front end with the business. And so I'm like, at least that'll alleviate some things from you to handle this more. But I will be completely honest. At this phase and stage in our life, we've not been as intentional to have those conversations about time because we're just kind of like moving. We're just
I
moving. Nobody's wanted to take the time to slow down and say, okay, let's really see if this is really how we need to be aligned or if we need to
I
change.
I appreciate that transparency so often because and that's the heart behind this podcast.
Yeah,
Having faith in finances is literally we are just out here trying to figure it out.
yeah,
We become aware the heart wants to serve God and we want God to be the Lord of every area of our lives.
mhm,
And
mhm,
sometimes it's through tension, it's through these growth seasons, it's through
yeah,
a season of blessing that you realize, oh snap, hey, we used to do this. We don't do that anymore. Hold on. How do we
yeah,
recalibrate? And I believe that is the awareness piece. Now that we're aware, okay, God, w- we know that we're walking in your purpose, but we also know that this is something that we need to do. Now we just need to figure out how do we make this happen? How do we recenter you? Um and there's no shame and condemnation in that. It is something that we all struggle with in various seasons. It's an ongoing conversation to be like, hey, 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 we've drifted. We just need to give it like, hey, hey, hey,
yeah,
we're drifting. Hey, you know what? On the go, let's do this and come up with some ideas where God, we know, our children know that God is first, and it
yeah,
is from Him
yeah,
that all blessings flow. That's so good and
yeah.
so
Well, one
encouraging, I'm sure.
and one thing we recently, like as of last week, talked about going into this week, and we need to recap on it. So thank you for asking that question. We both agreed that we're going to spend some time in prayer and fasting together to just kind of, like you said, just to reset, because we acknowledge like, man, it's been a whirlwind. It's like, okay, let's stop, let's slow it down, let's go
Yeah.
to the one we know that keeps this thing together anyway, and really just kind of committing some time together in prayer and just getting that, the alignment back together.
Man, that is so good, and I love that, and I think that that's the key here. It is the drifts will happen,
Mhm.
and but what do you do when you notice the drift? And I believe
Yeah,
that to me, I mean, if you look at the Bible, everybody, like people ran away from God, and what do you
yeah,
do when you become aware that hey, you're out of alignment? And those it starts with a awareness, and then the conversation, and then making a plan. And that doesn't
yeah,
mean that you're going to be perfect every week, and things are going to but it's like, "Hey, I noticed that we didn't do this check-in." Whatever that check-in is, whether it's a date night, a conversation, a text thread, we gotta check in. "Hey, I'm listening to this podcast, you listening to that episode. Let's try to send a voice note. What did you learn? What did you know?" All right.
yeah,
If we can't sit down at the same time, we do what we can, but we're connecting. We are trying to be as an intentional. And this week, I may be carrying it more than Mitchell. Next week, Mitchell may be carrying it more than I am. But somebody's carrying the book.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's good,
yeah.
that's good. Alright, so we've
Okay.
talked about a lot. The in your story, that you submitted, there was something about a timeshare.
Oh, girl, we gotta go there though. Yes.
Listen, tell the people about this timeshare, and I wanted to highlight it because for so many different reasons. Okay,
Yes.
so tell the people the timeshare story, and then we'll
Yes.
we'll talk a little bit about it.
So, girl, this timeshare, we got this timeshare before we were even married.
Okay.
So I remember we went on,
And wait, y'all been married for how long?
it'll be 17 years in July.
Okay.
So this is a while ago. And so we're just doing a little trip together and we got a room, but we got two separate beds. We was good.
Ain't
We
no
was
shame
good.
in that. We don't condemn you.
No judgment, no judgment. But anyway, you know what they do? They come, they're like, hey, come get this free, we'll give you this free trip to whatever, this free
Mhm.
whatever, this whole thing. And you're like, okay, we got a little few coins. We didn't have much. So like, well, let's just go because it'll get us a free something. And so we went out in, I think it was Orlando, Florida. We went, did the whole thing. And of course, I don't, that might have been my first time going on a timeshare presentation. And so I didn't really know what to expect.
It's
And
all
so we
day.
get in, huh?
It's all day. It's several
All day long.
hours.
Oh, they make you work for that free whatever. And so you sit there and then the hard sales presentation at the end. And so, of course, they give you their initial price. And then it's like, nope, can't even think about it. Then they start, well, we can take this off and we can do this. And then it's this price. No, that's not. So then they finally get down to this bottom line price. And then now that starts to think because it feels good. Like I didn't grow up traveling. I want it. That's a strong desire of mine to be able to travel and do all of this. And, now I'm in a serious relationship and we can do this together and all that kind of stuff. And so, they knocked it down to whatever the price was. I don't remember. And it was like, okay, is this something we can do? Now, mind you, not married, right? Not married yet. We might have been engaged. I don't even remember. So we're making this commitment together and it's in my name. Not married. It's in my name. So we're making this commitment together about this timeshare that we're going to pay off. And so eventually we got married. So I think we must have been engaged because we used it to go on a honeymoon. I do remember that. And so we're like, all right, fine, we're going to do it. And so we go on the honeymoon. I think for a week, it was like $40. We're still paying the monthly payment because we had to finance it, number one, at like a ridiculous interest rate. And then you have the annual maintenance fees and all these things. And we're just starting out in life and, trying to make it work and figuring out how to combine the finance and do all this. And we come in with this fresh hot debt together. If we want, we gonna have debt together. We gonna do it. We gonna do it big. And so we're sitting here and we're like, okay, well, maybe we can even like share our points and have people pay us to go on the chime share, which we were only able to do once because then you get the blackout periods and all these things. And so all the things they tell you, all the things you think can happen when you're in this high sales position, you're thinking about travel and all the dreams, and you get back home and then you're just like, okay, this actually wasn't everything it was sold to be, or we're just not in the position to capitalize on it financially and all of those things because I like the general idea of timeshares, but I do think it definitely fits for a certain, you know, group of folks. We just were not part of that group of folks at the time. And so eventually we were like, we got to get out of this thing because number one, we're not even able to travel like we thought we were. The week we were assigned wasn't even, conducive to our schedules. And then we have these annual maintenance fees that keep going up every month. And then this interest and we're paying this month. So all of this stuff. And so very embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed because it's over and done with. So, in order to get out of the timeshare, desperate times calls for desperate measures. And this is something I would never do again. But it was just one of those things where, like, we just need to get out of it. And so, you're calling all the timeshare people and they're telling you all these things. And you don't know who's legit and who's not legit and all of the things. So, finally, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get a personal loan with a lower interest rate. I'm going to pay the timeshare off so we don't have a balance on it. And then if we want to surrender it back to the people, we can do that. And so that's what I did. I think I cut at least the interest rate was cut in half. And so I did that somewhere a few months into it. We talked about it. We're like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and surrender it. So we surrendered it back to the timeshare people. And so we were paying on this personal loan without the benefit of anything. Like we were just paying money for nothing. And I was like, I wouldn't, I just, that was so painful to go through. But I mean, those are the mistakes you make and you learn from them. Hopefully you learn from them. And I'm like, never again.
So I want to, because you use the word mistake, I guess my question for you is, what did that teach you about slowing down and seeking
Yeah.
wisdom? Like, how did that whenever you all paid that or surrender that, from that point forward, when you go on vacation or when you're faced with a hefty financial decision, how do y'all approach it now?
Yeah. So that's something we always talk about, and I'm the budgeter. So I'm like, if we have to finance it, that's a longer conversation.
Mhm.
And so we're like, what are the implications? Where do we stand? How does this go with the larger
That's
picture? Because
good.
I'm not a believer that all debt is. I'm
Bad.
not going to go into the good debt, bad debt thing, but some debt can be necessary. You know, if you're financing a home or larger purchase, just make sure your credit is good and you get the lowest interest rate possible. Same thing with a car. These are things that you live in. The other one takes you where you need to go and get you to work and all that kind of stuff to make the money, drop your kids off. So do what you can, make sure it's reasonable. But when it comes to things like travel and stuff like that, that's the needs and the wants. Travel is definitely a want.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to making those decisions, it becomes a conversation of priority. Like,
Mhm.
what are we really trying to do here? What's a priority in life and what makes sense just for the whole grand scheme of our life without cutting out all of the other things that should be highly prioritized. And
That's good.
so, we sit even now with if we need to buy a new car, if someone's car gets totaled and we need to replace the vehicle, that's even still a conversation. Even though I said it was a need, that's still a conversation to see, is there something else we can do in the interim? But when it comes to something like that timeshare, that was such a rash thing because we got sold. So the wisdom in that is, don't allow any external force to impact you to make a decision about something like that you shouldn't be making. Because there's
I like
always that voice.
I like what you say, you got sold into something, into believing something, and I think if you could take your decision making, not be sold into it, meaning somebody shouldn't have to sell you to make a decision. You
That's
should
right.
be asking the Lord and seeking Him about the decision, and then it's almost like you know what you want. If we want a
Hmm.
vacation, what does that look like? If I need to buy a new car, and that's why I struggle with car salesmen. I'm here to buy
Yeah,
a car. I don't need you to sell me on it.
that's right.
I don't need that. Now, I need information about the car. Tell me
Right.
that. But I don't need you to
Right.
sell me on the deal. I'm
That's
coming
right.
to make a purchase.
That's right.
So, and my budget gonna tell me everything I need to know, honestly and
I
truly.
always say, people ask me, say, should I do this? I say, it's honestly, it's after you get the clearance from the law, it's a math problem. This the
It's a math
numbers, these
problem.
numbers make sense.
It
You know,
really, it honestly and truly, and I don't need to be sold on the math.
no, no,
It either I can or I can't.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So there's something that I want to touch on before I guess before we wrap up this particular segment, and that is about boundaries with generosity. And you've touched on it a couple of different times, and I think it kind of manifests in different ways. When you have a generous heart, it will
Yeah.
lead you down a path, right? And I am going to talk about me. I am not talking
Mhm.
about you or anybody else. When I Because I grew up and I didn't have a lot, when I wanted to not only take care of me, but everybody that was connected to
Mhm.
me. I am
Mhm.
a giver. The Lord gave me, and my spiritual, my love language is gifts. I love to
Mhm.
give. I love to receive gifts. Like, quality time is great. However, run me a present. Like, and so
Okay.
one of the challenges that I face, like, is especially in marriage and with people that I love, I want to show up big and show up well
Mhm.
in this area. And so the Lord has had to deal with me quite frankly and
Yeah.
sternly about generosity and boundaries. And so
Yeah.
I am curious, um, when you think back over how you were generous and some of the things that you've done for people, um, I know generosity is advantageous for all, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
can you think of a time where you're like, "You know what? I was generous and people took advantage or this person took advantage." Talk through that as
Yeah.
openly and as transparently as you can.
Yeah. So I remember one story very vividly. Um, I worked for, now this was, I was young, very young. I'm early 20s. I just graduated from college and I got a job at a church. And I was kind of the church receptionist. And it was in Third Ward, and so they kept the front door locked, girl. So they kept the front door locked. And so there was a young lady that would come. I think she came the first time because they had the a food pantry and clothes and stuff. And so she came and she needed some assistance. And we're probably around the same age, different upbringing, what have you. And she was pregnant. And so we kind of formed a bit of a relationship. We exchanged numbers, all of that, heart, ministry, church, all of that. This young lady, I can impact her for the Lord, and all this stuff, and help her. And so I would help her with the food pantry and the things that she would need. And then one day she came and I got to know her, and she would talk about her family and all of this, and a boyfriend and a baby she was having, all of this stuff. And then one day, this kind of where the door opened, and she asked me, and I don't remember all the minute details, but she was like, I'm trying to get this or do this, XYZ. So now, we've got a bit of a rapport. She's not someone that just came around one time, but it's like, no, like I know her, we have each other's numbers. And so she asked me for something, and for money specifically. And I can't remember how much it was, but I remember, this lets you know how long ago it was, because I wrote her a check. That's how long it was. I majored myself. So I wrote the girl a check for this, and then she takes the money, and I see that she'd cashed the check. Or actually, she hadn't cashed it yet. And then she came back and she was like, hey, I appreciate, thank you so much for the money you gave me and all this stuff. She was like, but, I had the check. My little brother took the check and he tore up the check. And so I couldn't. So she said, I need another check. And so now, young, green, what would it bring me the toe up check? And all of it, if I'm gonna give, I'll write you. So I was like, oh, no problem. It's okay. I'll give you. Wrote the girl another check. She presented both of them checks and I was like, you know what? So I had to change all my bank accounts and do all, because I didn't, I'm like, God, if she would do that, who knows how much more she would do. And so that was kind of really my first lesson in dealing with, I would say, strangers per se, because she wasn't someone I knew very well, to where I got in that instance, to where she probably knew, like, yeah, I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna become friends with her, I'm gonna get her comfortable, and I'm gonna ask her for money, and then I'm gonna and then so it could have gone worse. And after that, and I tell you how I know, is she disappeared after that.
Mm.
And so there wasn't, I'm going to come back around and we're going to resolve this situation issue. It was just poof. She was gone. And so after that, and the initial inclination was, I ain't never doing this again. It closes up the bowels of generosity, right? And so that was something I had to process mentally, because I never had somebody be that completely blatant with me in that way. And so it took me a little bit of time to really kind of come back to say, okay, how do we do this? And so, to the point to where when we did get married, one thing Rashid and I agreed on, because we didn't have a whole lot, but we both have a servant's heart and both have a very generous and giving heart, as you probably have experienced yourself. We agreed that one thing we would do, we had our bills, and then we had an account for, like, personal spending and all of that. And our bills account was part of, like, our giving and offerings and all that to church or whatever ministries. And then we had a separate giving account. And we would put a certain amount every time we got paid, we would just allocate a certain amount to that account. And what that account was, is if anybody needed something, that's where we would pull from that money. And we did that because we had to manage. At that time, budget had to be managed. Budget was tight, because any unforeseen expense that came in was going to throw us off. And so, because it was intentional for us and something we really, really wanted to do, we had that separate account. And so I wouldn't say even in that situation, I would have still written that check to that young lady, but at least it caused me to be more intentional now about the questions I ask, who I'm giving to, what's going on, things like that, and because that's the thing is if the Lord, and here's one thing, and I'm going to say this as we close, Rashid actually taught me this, because I'm the type of person, and I still do this now, and I'll be honest, because we know to taking advantage of, this is the biggest part, is the people on the panhandlers on the street. I never carry cash, and so I don't usually have money to give. But if I do, I'm a few dollars, some change, whatever, because sometimes some people need it, some people you just never know. You don't know
Mm.
these people from the next person. But I would feel so guilty when I didn't have anything to give them. And that was something else I had to work through. I would feel so guilty to where, like, if I was in the lane where they were, I had to switch lanes and go around because I couldn't look them in the face sitting there on the corner. And I'm like, I don't have any. I would feel so guilty. And then I remember one time, Rashid, another story vividly. There's a guy on the corner and he was like, "Man, I need some bus fare. I'm trying to get to the homeless shelter downtown. Give me some bus fare." So, Rashid gonna ask questions like, "Okay, where all the things." So he's like, "All right, man, I'll give you a few dollars." So we were pumping gas. He watched the man go in, take his money, and go buy a beer with his bus money. So Rashid stopped. He went and he was like, "Hey, man." I was like,
That
"Wait,
was
hey,
for
man,
the
you want
bus.
that bus money?" And he was, and so and then after that, he was like, you know what? He was like, people are in need. The Bible says, the poor will always be among us and all of that. And, who knows, you could be entertaining an angel unawares. He was like, but at the end of the day, you never allow somebody to put you in a position to where you just give based on their compulsion or selling or whatever it is, or them playing on your sympathies. He's like, you give as you're led to give. And you can see that person on that corner. If it's not placed in your heart, or if God don't drop it in your spirit to give, what? Hey, move on. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. And so in that time frame, those have been lessons for me to learn because it is. It's like it does so. Even telling those stories now, it's just like, man, like wow, like that's something else because it's like everybody is not honest.
Everybody's
And
not honest, and it's so interesting because, and we could talk about this, but it's so interesting because people also take that same approach that you do or about what those homeless people, the people that the panhandlers, right? Because they're not always homeless. The people on the corner, what they do with the money, and
Mhm.
they try to apply that same methodology to the church and what the church does with the money and what the pastors are doing with the money. And the Bible doesn't say, "Hey, you are supposed to give to only these to people that are going to use this money
Right.
this way."
This yeah, yeah,
And so I agree with Rashid in the sense that, hey, if the Holy Spirit put it on your heart to give to this person,
yeah.
the amount doesn't matter. It's the
Mhm.
obedience and the heart
That's
posture behind it. But if I'm giving out of an emotional sale,
that's right.
then that's out of the will of God,
That's
right?
right.
Because that's deceit and that's
Right.
just not. And here's the deal. It is when we give out of emotion, when we've been sold, now we get offended if it's not used the way they told us it was going to be used, or if it's not paid back. And so to keep that from happening,
Yeah.
give inside of the will of God and let God take care of the
That's
rest.
right.
However they
Yeah,
do with that,
that's
then
right.
that's it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's important. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's always important to remember. So it's like we don't ever really know what's going to happen on the end. We don't know what lesson God is even teaching them or us in those situations to where it's like the instruction is to do this. And
Mhm.
once you're obedient, you've done your job. You can't worry, that was a seed for something or who knows. And so, like you said, that offense has to be removed
Yeah.
once you've said, all right, God, I did what you wanted me to do. Whatever you want to do after that is up to you, is on you. And you just kind of leave it at that. And so I no longer feel guilty
Thank
when I
you.
pass by people on the street. I don't. I
Yeah.
don't feel proud either. But
Listen,
we
we just take one emotion at a time, and we know we don't feel guilty.
but
We
I no longer
definitely,
feel guilty.
and it's an empathetic, right? You have the gift of
I
empathy, right? And I think that
I
that's
do. Is it? But
and
is it a gift? Because it doesn't feel like
I think
it.
so, right? Because it's interesting. I'm learning now about being empathetic truly and what that looks like. And God creates us all perfectly and wonderful in His image, and He was empathetic to people. So I do believe that it is a gift. It doesn't always feel good when you can't
Yeah,
change someone else's situation because you want to be a part of that process. And if the Holy Spirit assigns you to people, you could be empathetic and down in the mud. You don't have to over identify, but somebody got to be holding on to the cross so that we're not stuck in the mud together. Because that's another
Right.
thing too, where you could be like, man, I just want to give and give and give. And now, even if it's not financial, I'm giving of my heart, I'm giving of my
Mhm.
emotions, I'm giving of
Mhm.
my time, and now I'm exhausted. And
That's
now
right.
I've
Yeah.
moved into a place of spiritual guidance that I should not be, because
Yeah.
everyone who is in crisis or down on their in a down season should first be looking to God. And then if he is using me as a heavenly resource, I mean, or as an earthly resource, then that's it. But you got to be looking to him first. Don't
Oh,
be
yeah.
looking at Angela, because
Mhm.
okay, you gonna get in there. Listen,
I
I
agree.
know we gotta end this. I wanna honor your time, and I wanna honor the time of the listeners. So if you could give them one piece of advice about whether it's generosity and boundaries, stewarding your money, whatever that is, what would that be to someone who is listening? What would that
Yeah.
takeaway be?
One of my favorite, it's actually a chapter in a book, but I'll call it a quote, is to end with the begin. What to say? To begin with the ending in mind. I think
That's
that's a
good.
Stephen Covey leadership trait. And I've even taught that to second graders, right? Is you have to have a vision first for what you want, whether it's like you said, giving or generosity, and you said, or just your life in general. You said it earlier, to have a plan. But what does that want to? What does that look like? For you, and then kind of work your way backwards from there. And so I know some people call it vision boarding and all these things or whatever they want to call it. I'm not really even getting to that level as much as it is at least have a picture or a view of what the different aspects in your life look like, and then commit those to the Lord in prayer, because just because we have a vision doesn't mean it's God's vision for us, doesn't mean it's in God's will. But it's okay to start with that and say, okay, God, refine this for me. If this is not the direction you want me to go, help me with that. And since we're talking about finances, I mentioned this earlier, and I don't mean to make it sound light, because it's easy for me to say when I'm no longer in that struggle season. But even if you're in that struggle season when it comes to money, again, having the vision and the view of what life looks like when things don't feel so strained. And start practical and just say, this is how it feels, this is what it looks like. And then when you start to prioritize and make commitments and plans, now you can have a view of where you're going, because a lot of times we don't have a path, we don't have a direction. If we don't have a target, then you're shooting at the air. So create a target for yourself, so that now you know what practical steps you need to take to be able to get there. And it might take time. Just be consistent and keep going, and don't give up.
Ah, that is so good. This episode is just such a powerful reminder. The stewardship isn't just about what you give, it's about how you think, how you decide, how you grow. And what stood out to me is that generosity is not always easy. You have to have boundaries. And it's
Yeah,
not even just like a clean cut decision. But when it is rooted in wisdom and obedience, it becomes something that shapes your life. Because at the
yeah,
end of the day, it's not just about money, it's about trust, responsibility, and becoming someone who can handle what God places in your hands. So,
yeah,
if this episode challenged you, I want you to take a moment and reflect on how you are stewarding what you've been given. And if you are a part of our membership community, stay tuned. We're going to go deeper into the parts of the conversation that will not make it to the public ears. For everyone else, remember these two things. Breakthrough starts when you take control, and wealth is not built by accident. It starts with the decisions that you make today. We'll see you next time. Hey, so if this video helped you to see your money differently, I want you to subscribe so that you can continue building habits that lead to real wealth. I want you to remember these two things. One, breakthrough starts when you decide to take control. And then two, wealth is not built by accident, it is built by the decisions that you make today. I'll see you next time.